Frederick Douglass was the most photographed American of the 19th century. Frederick Douglass used his image, along with his rhetoric, his words, his speeches, to communicate an image of what it meant to be an American, what it meant to be a human being. The number one thing on his plate was to get the black man the vote.
I think this is a very not only well done and well researched piece, but a piece that has a lot of real world and modern day implications. And it shows that just because there are certain laws passed or there appears to be a certain type of milestone in terms of giving people rights, that those rights are always threatened to be taken away. And without a group of people and a large coalition that doesn't just include the people that are oppressed, that are engaged in making sure that these people maintain a sense of dignity and humanity within the social structure. Without that commitment, that these rights will fade away, and that things will go back to a place in which everyone thought it could never go back to. And I felt like that particular idea had a lot of strong real world implications. And this was a piece that wasn't just about chronicling Frederick Douglass's incredible work and passion and commitment, but sort of reflecting a larger societal and human dynamic in which people need to be more committed to the freedom of everyone so that their individual dignity can be maintained. And I thought that this piece was done in a way that really relayed this idea to not just people that were familiar with this discourse, but people that didn't understand how any of this played out at the time. So in that sense, this worked very well for me.
Imagery is major in this one, which is a really nice allusion to the title, but using all of the comics showing this is what an American is at that point in history, and let's break out of that. I think too that the growth of the music in, I believe, part 4 toward the end, it's not a button of a music, it's growth of music, meaning there's more to come. Frederick Douglass didn't stop there with the 15th Amendment. He did go on to help the suffragettes. So even though the documentary is finished there, his story is not over there. And I think the music kind of helps with that, which is a very nice touch.
Great documentary short. It was about Frederick Douglass and the roles of race and the life of racism in the country during that time in the 18th century, during that time in American history. And it was about the abolitionists and how their strategy with the Republicans in Congress, how their strategy was going against the feminist agenda, because the feminists also wanted the right to vote and things like that. Some of those feminists were even Frederick Douglass's own friends, so that was very very problematic. And then it talked about Andrew Johnson, who was a staunchly racist president, who did not cater to black people. He said he would be their Moses, but he wasn't, and he enforced allowed a lot of racist policies against black people. But the whole documentary short was very wholesome of that period, and the transitions were great with the drawings, animations, and the primary source pictures of that time. So it really felt like I was watching U.S. history or PBS documentaries.
Thoroughly detailed, while still very engaging and a great pace to bring this information along. I thought it was quite brilliantly crafted in going through this historical time. I thought the images really helped center me in the time and the place. And it definitely was a topic I had no prior knowledge about. But I feel like I could go out and I want to share this kind of information with people as well. So I thought it was really, really well done. And I would love to see more from this film group in terms of making history engaging and fun and showing the nuances in it as well. It wasn't just one narrative. It really showed a multitude of narratives and opposing sides and how that all manifested in history, I suppose.
Throughout this, there were a lot of good uses of historical images, pictures of Frederick Douglass or events that he was either involved in or that in some way involved him. or his work or his message, what have you. That was used as a visual to kind of accompany the narration, which I think kept things more engaging. You're not just looking at a person talk, but you're hearing what they have to say and what they have to contribute, while also looking at more primary sources of the information that they're discussing. The story is also very well framed through this idea of photographs, saying how Frederick Douglass was one of the most well photographed Americans in his time in the 19th century. It's framed very well through the title, through that introduction, and then through the way the film itself is presented. So that was very interesting. That was really cool to see. There's also a sense of drama in the narration, which keeps the audience engaged, which is important in a film like this.
Felt very sleek, very polished. It starts out with these historical photographs of Frederick Douglass, and it felt almost like a History Channel documentary. It felt very high budget. I think they did a very good job with the talking heads and the narration and having them complement each other over top of these historical photographs. You really got a sense of the time and the time period. And I think they did a really cool thing with their political cartoons. I think it was a really good idea to include that to sort of show the ideas of the time and what society was thinking, along with their historical photographs, including those cartoons, was really helpful in getting a feel for the time as well.
You know, to hear this, that he was the most photographed American of the 19th century, it just makes sense. You know, I didn't know that. But it makes sense because, you know, we all know who he is. And they said he was on a PR campaign, to show what Americans really look like. And, and just speaking in terms of modern, business, his branding with that rock and roll hair, and everything, and the collar and he did a great job of making himself absolutely unforgettable in the visual sense, and this is like, before television, he's kind of almost like this type of personality. It's astounding to have it put in that context. It absolutely makes sense, That's only a small piece of this documentary too, just the absolute, all the history that we go through here. I didn't know so much about President Johnson. We always, in history class, we concentrate on Lincoln and the Civil War. We don't learn so much about Andrew Johnson. The fact that this scholar says you could go anywhere in the United States if you absolutely could find the absolute worst person to be president, this was the guy. That's amazing and astounding to hear. But and to hear that Mr. Douglass had went head to head with this president like this. Yeah, and then all these amendments that occurred and stuff. This is like, it really drives home. This is one of the absolute most important people in American history, period.
It was entertaining and informative. I absolutely learned a lot about Frederick Douglass. Learned a little bit about opinions of Andrew Johnson too. It's presented really well. It's concise. It moves along at a good pace. The things we're talking about are just as relevant today, unfortunately, as they were, back in the 1860s. So for that reason alone, I'm glad this one exists. Just more immediate attention, or attention in the form of media, to a really important topic.